consider myself to be the CEO of having failed situationships with stupid loser freak dork nerd men. Like I don't know why I'm laughing. Nothing is funny. This one lasted about a year, which is fucking crazy. And I could lie and be like, I don't know why I stuck around. Like I should have more self-worth. Like no, babe, I just love attention. Like that's why I. This is a guy that I met last like spring, summertime through my best friend. We did not meet in person. That is a huge detail. Not in person. My friend and I were doing this thing that was like, show me your cute friends and I'll show you mine. So like we were doing that, and it got to this guy, and I was like, hey girl. Also the friend is Braden. I don't know why I'm acting like it's someone you've never heard of. But Braden's like, heads up, this kid does not live in New York and he doesn't plan on living in New York. Like, I don't really care. I don't want to date this kid or anyone. Like, I just want to flirt and have a good time, which is true. Like, that's kind of like my entire thing. And right when we exchanged Instagrams, I got COVID. So like I was in lockdown for a week, and then we're talking about when he had COVID, and he's like, oh, like when I had COVID, like all I did was play Fortnite. And I was like, oh my God, like I played a couple times. Like it was super fun, whatever. He's like, oh my God, you have a headset. And I'm like, yeah, I have a headset. And he's like, okay, great. So like, let's play Fortnite right now. So like, this is the reason that I'm obsessed with Fortnite to this day. Like this guy is the reason I'm the way that I am. So we play every single night, and then I stop having COVID and we still keep playing. We do like Netflix parties, we start FaceTiming, and then things start to get like a little bit steamy. It'd be like the 2-ish month mark, and then he's moving back to Chicago because he was going to college like out of state. And I was like, oh my God, fuck yeah, like I love Chicago. I'm considering moving there next year for a little bit. And I'm like, wait, why don't I fly out for a weekend and like visit you and stay with you and like also see Chicago? Like that'd be so fun. I want to meet you, and also like I love the fucking city. So we start like picking dates, setting up a trip, like itinerary, what we're gonna do, and then he starts acting like a fucking freak. He's like really ghosty for a week, and I asked Braden, I'm like, do you know what's going on with this dude? And he's like, I don't know, man. He's a weird dude. He was like moving, whatever. He's like, hey, I'm sorry for being really ghosty and flaky. I just like can't have a girlfriend right now, and like I don't want you to move to Chicago for me. And I'm like, well, first of all, I've been wanting to go to Chicago before I even knew who you were, so like that's absolutely not the case. And second, like we've had this conversation many times that I don't want to date anyone and you don't want to date anyone, so like what? But I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I'm like, we never met in person, so like he could just think that I was a crazy liar, that I was actually secretly in love with him. Like whatever. But I was like, yeah, like if you don't want to do the trip, I totally understand. Like you're a good friend of mine now beyond like the whole like attraction thing. And he's like, but we're not friends. And I'm like, I know we're not just friends, but like we're not dating each other. And he's like, you know what? No, I'd really love to do this trip. Like I'd love to meet you, whatever. And I'm like, okay, great. Ghost mode for 2 weeks. His birthday happened to be around this time, so I was like, you know what? I'll just happy birthday way back in. So I was like, hey, happy birthday. He's like, oh my God, thanks. Like I moved into my new apartment. Like let's play Fortnite. I was like, okay, yeah. So like, what's going on? Like you just randomly stopped talking to me. Like it's kind of weird. Like we were friends. I don't really understand. And he was like, oh, like I decided that I need to take a break from women that I'm attracted to. Now I'm out of time, so I'll come back for part 2.
Bruh. I don't know why I said bribe, but bruh, what's going on? Now I'm confused. Okay, I'm listening. I really was just like, what is going on? Okay, give me a second. Okay, so I found part 2.
So here's part 2 of the loser freakazoid I had a situationship with, aka Mr. Fortnite. Timeline-wise, that was in August, and then he just kind of like lingered around after, like I was doing my stories first and like liking my posts really quick. So it gets to be October, November, and I'm going to Chicago for a weekend because I have some like work stuff to do. So I text Braden and I'm like, should I reach out to Mr. Fortnite? Like, should I like set up a time to get coffee or something? Like, I don't know. I just feel weird kind of going to Chicago and like not seeing him or like not even acknowledging that I'm there because like he sees all my stories and stuff. And he's like, it'd be kind of a power move to just like show up and not say anything, but also like what happened between you two wasn't really that bad, so like you might as well reach out and just like say hi and see if he wants to actually meet up. I wouldn't be staying with him, like the stakes are lower, so I was like, yeah, that's a good point. So I ended up texting him and I'm like, hey, like I'm gonna be in Chicago in a couple weeks just for work stuff if you want to like grab a drink or get coffee and like meet up, whatever. And this fucking loser responded like 20 seconds later, and he's like, wait, why are you gonna be in Chicago? And I was like, oh, for work stuff. And he's like, well, why do you want to meet up? And I was like, I don't know, you were like my friend for a while, I wanted to like meet you, like I don't know. And after hitting me with fucking 20 questions, he just simply didn't respond. So I go to Chicago and he's like on top of every single thing that I'm posting, like way more than he was before. And for me, this is pre-medication, so I'm anxious as fuck that this dude is just gonna like roll up like the entire time my IBS. Like I had an IBS flare the entire trip. And then when I was there, I was like, oh fuck, I still have his location on my phone because like I love sharing locations with my friends. Like I love stalking people. It's like a little game. I started to like periodically check where he was just to make sure that we're like not gonna run into each other because I just didn't want that to happen. One night I'm getting Mexican food and literally in my widget popped up like location, like it was one of the main ones, and it was like Fortnite's location and my location, and I was like, oh boy, we are really close. So I click on it and I start watching it, and I just slowly see his location just get closer and closer to mine. So I'm like taking screenshots, sending to my friends. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And it gets to a point where his location is literally on top of mine. Like I was like, where the fuck is he? Like I'm like looking around, freaking the fuck out. So I look by the exit and there's just a group of people our age, and I'm like, there's no fucking way that's him and his friends right now. Like there's no fucking way. And I say to my friend, like, we need to get the fuck out of here. Like this dude is outside and he knows that I'm in here and it's freaking me out. I'm literally out of time. I'm so sorry. I'll get back to for part 3.
Okay, now I'm invested. Hold on. Okay, here is part 3. I'm invested.
This is part 3 of my loser freak situationship, aka Mr. Fortnite. My friend and I end up leaving the restaurant without like making eye contact with him or any of his friends, but like I knew them and I knew their voices, so like I absolutely knew that like he was in that group. So I ended up finishing my trip in Chicago, and of course I like unshared my location because what the fuck. So back in New York, fast forward about 4 months, I get a scholarship to study at Second City to do improv, and that's in Chicago. So I put on my Instagram story like, hey, I'm gonna be in Chicago for 2 months. If anyone has like a sublet or whatever. And then this fucking dodo brain starts like interacting with me again, like subbing up on stories, liking everything, commenting on shit. I remember one time specifically, he swiped up on a story of mine and he was like, I feel like we should be enemies. And I just responded, fuck off, I hate you. And then shortly after, we ended up having like a funny interaction on Twitter, like a funny 1-2-3 thread. And then one of those like really big Twitter accounts screenshotted it and like posted that on their account. And then he fucking texts me and he's like, oh, I can't believe that my first interaction with social media fam has to be connected to you. And I'm like, fuck off. And he's like, you can come to Chicago. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you're not allowed to live here. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, the thought of you living here is really scary. And I was like, oh my god, what? And then he was like, look, I'll be honest, I left our friendship in a really shitty spot. And I'm like, you don't say, you fucking freak. He was like, honestly, when I first stopped talking to you, it was only because like I started to develop really strong feelings for you, and like I didn't want to. It was so fast, like I hadn't met you in person. Ladies, you're not delusional. He ghosted you because he is obsessed with you. And then this is where it gets really bad for me because he starts to just fuel my ego. So I'm like, oh my god, like maybe I'll give you another chance. Because basically he was like, honestly, you're just so like pretty and funny and cool, and like it made me really nervous. And I was like, oh my god. And then I got to Chicago and he started acting like a fucking freak again, like only DMing me, like never texting me, like not trying to find a time to hang out. And it got to be 2 weeks of me being there and like us texting, and then I just was like, hey, like when are we gonna hang out? And then he fucking ignores that message. And even though he ignored the text, he still keeps interacting with all my shit. So about like 5 days later, I was like, hey, can I just like call you on the phone? He's like, oh, I just got home from a concert, but like if I could text you, that's better. Like, no, he was just like being a bitch. But I was like, okay, I'll text you. Basically, what the fuck? What was the point of you reaching out to me and like apologizing for being a dick to then just like act like a dick again? Like, there's no point of us just DMing and chatting if like I'm literally living 6 blocks away from you. And then we kind of went back and forth a little bit, and I was like, you know what, dude, like you don't owe me anything. I'm just really annoyed that like you apologize and now you're acting the same way. But if you want to hang out with me, then hang out with me. And if you don't want to hang out with me, stop speaking to me. Like, don't interact with me anymore. And apparently message received because I've never heard from him after that.
Dang. What a time. What a time. Oh my goodness. That was crazy. I mean, like, I can understand, like, okay, if you're like talking to someone, you're texting, and like you're like playing. I don't play games or whatever, but like you're like playing games with someone, and then you're like, oh, hey, I'm gonna be in your city. Oh my god, why are people so weird? Like, okay, like she's like, oh, I'm gonna be in your city, and you're like, oh, if you had no intention of hanging out, be like, hey, I kind of just want this to be like a friend thing. I don't know. I don't even know what he could have said, because like, if we're like that cool, like we're like chit chatting all day, we're like hi-ing and kikiing, and I'm like, I'm in your city, let's hang out. I'm not saying let's go get married. Oh my god, but like just one hangout, like, is too much for you? That is crazy. And he just like started acting so weird. I don't know. Like, he's like, you can't move to Chicago because he must have had a girlfriend or something, because like there's no way that you're like, oh, you can't move to Chicago. I don't want you to come. Like, don't come because like we're gonna run into each other. Like, Chicago's like a big city. The chance of you guys like running into each other like slim to none. But like the whole like sharing your location with practically a stranger is crazy. So if you're like, oh, I don't want to really see you like that, why did you share your location? Like, I don't understand. Like, even if she like asked, oh, do you want to share location? I like having locations of like my friends. You'd be like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with that. But you shared your location. Anyway, that one was crazy because like it's like a situation like that, but like they never like met in person. I think those are like valid too, because like you still can like develop feelings with someone even though you like haven't met them. Because if you're like talking to them every day, you're really like flirting and doing other stuff, okay, like feelings can develop, and then you will want to bridge that gap and be like, okay, I want to see if the vibes are the same in person as well. But if that person never gives you the chance to see if the vibes are the same, because they may be surprised to be like, oh my god, like the vibes are like so chill and I really like this person. But I digress.